Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Des.
I'm Gaynor.
Office Bloke Aidan.
Here we are, all three of us. The hidden reason US can't build new highways. You don't see many new roads being built over here, to be fair. Especially motorways.
Well, because we pretty much cover the whole country in motorways.
We do, but they're all very congested as well.
Yeah, because there's not enough land.
We've
Too
had a
many
new
people.
bypass.
We need a few bypasses, but they don't build them.
There's just too many people in small land over here.
Yeah, there
But
is.
you would have thought it would be easy to do it over there. I don't know what the hidden reason is.
Well, you might have terrain play a big part in it. Certain, going through mountain regions or lakes and all kinds of stuff like that.
I'm sure they would have motorways going across the whole country, linking every city together anyway.
I think they do, yeah, but it's the reasons why they can't build new highways. Let's find out why. It's interesting, this.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that there aren't many new highways being built in the United States? Actually, there's none. The last highway built in the US was the 12.5-mile segment of Interstate 70 that runs through Glenwood Canyon in Colorado. That highway was completed and opened in October of 1992. Since then, there's been nothing. No new highways, not even new portions of highways. Why? Is it just about the money? Not exactly. Adjusted for inflation, the interstate highway system cost the US $618 billion to build. It's a high sum, but certainly not enough to stop more construction. There are other reasons why we're not getting new highways, and we're gonna break every single one of them down in this video. And surprise, it's not all about taxes and the cost of building. The first reason is that the United States is far more focused on maintaining its network of highways than it is on expanding it. You've probably seen this yourself when you're driving. The telltale road work ahead signs that bring you to a crawl are responsible for 24% of non-recurring delays in traffic. That maintenance is also a money sink. In 2019, Transportation for America said the U.S. will need just over $230 billion per year over the next 6 years just to keep America's existing roads working properly. Why is so much money spent on maintenance? Well, a large part of the reason comes down to the aging highway infrastructure. Even the newest stretch of American highway is over 30 years old and has seen millions of cars drive along its roads. That stretch of highway accounts for just 12.5 miles of a 40,000-mile network that started construction following the passing of the 1956 Federal Aid Highway Act. Some stretches of American highways are even older than that act. The first highway, dubbed the National Road, started construction in 1811 and ran for 820 miles through 6 states. The point is that there are a lot of roads that need maintenance in the U.S. highway system. Those roads are taking a constant battering from the elements. Combine water, sunlight, and natural oxidation, and you have 3 powerful elemental punches that can slowly destroy the roads. Rain mixed with snow and ice places American highways under constant pressure. The average annual rainfall in the U.S. was 29.5 inches in 2023, and that includes snow, hail, and other water-based elemental threats. That's 29.5 inches of water that seeps into weakened road base layers, causing cracks and potholes. The ultraviolet rays that hit American highways thanks to natural...
I'm not gonna lie, when I drove in the USA...
We'll say, look at that, it looks perfect.
It does, doesn't it? We've got very few roads now that look perfect.
Yeah.
Every road you drive down now is like...
You drive down roads and one of the lanes you're in is a different colour to the lane next to you.
Yeah.
It does, you're right, and I found that it's like being off-road when you go down some roads over here. I've seen better dirt roads in Ghana than what I've seen like over here on some of the
disgusting.
roads. It's in a bad state, that the way the roads are. Motorways are not as bad, the highways are not as bad as the side roads and the other roads.
Yeah.
But let us know if you're in the USA. Let us know if the side roads are sort of like pothole, because I remember driving when we drove to Nashville to Kentucky last time. It was a very smooth, easy ride. There was some road works, but it was very well organised. Yeah. Never really slowed us down. It's like straight through. You slow down obviously for the safety reason. Yeah. But it was moving all the way through, wasn't it? So it wasn't really as bad. But compared to what we've got over here, the US roads were miles better.
Yeah, our side roads are terrible as well.
They are.
Natural sunlight slowly dissolve the asphalt used in modern roads. Even the oxygen we breathe is a problem. It breaks down asphalt to the point where the material becomes even more susceptible to cracking. Add a constant flow of vehicles rumbling over it, and you have a recipe for faltering infrastructure. The U.S. has dedicated $110 billion to improving its roads as part of the Investment and Jobs Act, but that's all money that isn't going toward the construction of new highways. Still, surely there's enough money to cover repairs and new highway construction. The U.S. government collected almost $4.4 trillion from taxes and other revenue in fiscal year 2024 alone. Couldn't some of that cash go toward new roads? It could, but there are other reasons why we're not seeing new highways. Regulatory and environmental challenges also impact highway construction. Any new highways have to meet a minimum lane width of 12 feet, have a minimum of 4-foot paved shoulder on the left and a 10-foot shoulder on the right. Then, when there's 3 lanes in both directions, the shoulder width rises to 10 feet on either side. That may not seem like much, but it reveals that even a single new road requires a lot of land to build. If that new highway stretches for several hundred miles, a state or states will have to sacrifice vast tracts of land to allow for new highway construction. Putting that aside for now, though, we'll come back to land acquisition in a moment. There are also environmental factors at play in highway construction. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, points to the Coastal Zone Act Reauthorization Amendments, or CZARA, of 1990 as a big reason why new highways aren't being built. CZARA is designed to minimize the runoff into America's coastal waters, 21% of which is already susceptible to both land-to-sea and sea-to-land contamination, according to NASA. The EPA says improper road planning can
There's some like cool routes there though. I'm just trying to map out the routes there. There's one there that runs the whole west coast, that yellow one that comes down the west coast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where's
That's
Route 66?
I think Route 66 is the green one that starts at Chicago and then ends up in LA, right? You see which one I mean?
Is that not ending up in San Francisco? Oh.
Is that where it is?
I don't know.
I don't
It could
know.
be.
But it's that, you know where you see it's that green one anyway, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of like links the bottom. See the bottom of Illinois there. I think that's Route 66. But there's some cool like you know you can see obviously Interstate 95 that goes up the East Coast.
Yeah.
But there's some cool like highways there. You think to yourself, I guess that one across the bottom is I-10, is it?
The yellow
that
one.
runs the yellow one. Yeah, the yellow one that runs down through Texas and then into Louisiana.
Yeah.
Cool.
contribute to these pollution problems. So, any organization that even considers new highway construction has to avoid building their roads in any area that could affect American coasts or wetlands. But that's not all. They have to consider how water drains, how the soil responds, the local climate, and even the shape of the land before a single bulldozer is revved up. These are long-winded and expensive processes that likely deter the U.S. from even considering building new highways. It already costs $1.25 million per mile to simply mill and resurface a 4-lane road. So the billions it would cost to build a new one that meets existing regulations, it's simply too much. There are also regular inspections to consider. If we hone in on bridges, 83% of highway bridges are inspected by the Department of Transportation, or DOT, every 2 years. Annual inspections are carried out for 12% of bridges. Each of those inspections costs money, and any new highway has to pass these rigorous inspections. That's just another expensive hurdle standing in the way of construction. Standards are only getting stricter. The 2007 collapse of the I-35 West Bridge in Minneapolis, which involved 111 vehicles, shows that the DOT is still trying to get its inspection routines right. More regulations have to be put in place to ensure the existing crumbling highway system is up to standard before new roads can even be considered. Despite these barriers, there are still some plans for new highway developments. Interstate 99, which should run between southern New York and central Pennsylvania, sits in a partially completed state thanks to massive flooding and issues arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. There are many others still in the proposal stages, so the U.S. is at least trying to get extensions to its existing highway system off the ground. So, what are other problems stopping it? Apart from the cost and regulatory issues of building a new highway, there's also the land acquisition problem. The extensive amounts of land the DOT and other state and federal organizations need to build highways has to be bought and properly assigned for highway usage. It then has just to get by a general public that is often not happy to see a highway being built or expanded. In April of 2022, a group of Texan citizens took to the streets to protest a $9 billion project to widen and realign several of the city's major highways. Those plans, claimed the protesters, would force the displacement of thousands of people from their homes, as well as destroying hundreds of schools, businesses, and even local churches. Texas Governor Greg Abbott argued that Texas needs the highway expansions to help it handle the explosive population growth it's experienced over the last few years. At the time of the protests, Texas was growing at a rate of 1,100 people per day. According to Abbott, those people need new highways, but they also need places to live and work. Any new highway that's built needs to sacrifice the latter for the former. Texas's I-45 project alone will force the displacement of 1,200 people, with City Limits author Megan Kimball noting that most of those displaced are people of color. Not only are there land acquisition problems to face when building new highways, but also social issues that require confronting. And these are only the problems a single state faces because it wants to expand its highways. Building a brand new road comes with these same problems and more. There's the sheer cost of acquiring land, for instance. The cost of a single acre in America averages out to almost $18,500. Naturally, the price varies depending on the state. In California, an acre costs over $24,500, whereas you can pick up the same amount of land in Arizona for about half as much. Still, there's a clear cost burden at play here. Assuming we have a 6-lane highway road, the regulations state that each lane has to be 12 feet wide. That creates a total of 72 feet. With 3 lanes in each direction, there also needs to be 20 feet of paved shoulders on each side of the highway. This adds up to 40 feet, giving us a total approximate width of 112 feet. This hypothetical highway is just 0.02 miles wide. Now, when we stretch that over the 12.5-mile segment of I-70 we mentioned earlier, you end up with about 0.26 square miles of land. Doesn't sound like much, right? But when you convert that to acres, you get 166 acres. Multiply that by the average land cost of almost $18,558 per acre, and you're staring at a land acquisition price tag of over $3 million for a tiny stretch of highway. And remember, that's before planning, construction, and all the other costs kick in. If that land includes housing, like it often does in Texas, you can kiss your budget goodbye. But let's say a prospective highway builder has the money to buy the land and build the highway. They're all set, right? Not necessarily. As the 2022 protests in Texas showcased, that highway builder still has to deal with space constraints. Governor Abbott may be willing to displace thousands of people, but those people don't want to be moved. That's a situation you'll see all over the US as new highway construction has to be balanced against urban sprawl and growing populations. Those protesting Texans aren't the only ones who want highway builders to take a break either. In February of 2024, a coalition of almost 200 groups was calling for the US to create a nationwide moratorium on expanding the existing highway system. Those groups argue that highways, and the cars that use them, create an environmental nightmare for the country. American vehicles combined to generate 370 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2022 alone, with the addition of more highways only likely to worsen that emissions problem. Combine those climate-related issues with the displacement that occurs when trying to build highways through densely populated urban areas, and you have a recipe for protests that slow construction down to a crawl. All of which brings us to our next reason why new highways aren't being built in the United States. America's collective transportation needs are changing. The majority of American voters would much rather see the money that could go toward new highways spent on more public transportation options in their cities. 71% of American voters believe more funding should go to public transport at the expense of new highways. However, they're being forced to watch as investment into highways outstrips money going into trains, buses, and similar forms of transportation at a ratio of $4 to $1. There's certainly a return on investment that comes from spending more on public transport. Public transit provides a 5-to-1 return, and that it's better for the environment too. It currently saves 37 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year in the US. That's around a tenth of what vehicles generate annually. The carbon conscious will point to that as reason enough to spend less on highways. Other changes in vehicle usage and ownership may also make highways increasingly obsolete. Attitudes toward vehicles are starting to shift. About a third of Americans say they'd be willing to ditch car ownership altogether by 2030, with 18% saying they're very likely to do so. The rise of ride-sharing apps such as Uber may play a part in this, as could the increasing appetite for public transit mentioned earlier. Even though household car ownership rose between 2015 and 2022, the sheer number of vehicles on American roads has declined over the last 3 decades. America was home to 136 million vehicles in 1995. That number peaked in 2001 with 138 million before starting a steady decline to take us to just under 100 million in 2022. Wow. These figures suggest that households are increasingly moving away from owning more than one car. Fewer cars means less demand for new highways. So, where does all of this leave the US when it comes to its highways? There are new projects in the works, but they're constantly beset with delays related to costs and opposition from the general public. Maintenance of existing highways is a greater priority than building new ones. Plus, there's a clear emerging trend toward public transit and fewer cars on the roads, which make it even harder to justify the expense of building new highways. Money gained from taxes isn't the issue. Instead, there's a cavalcade of challenges that makes building new highways not worth the time or effort required. But what do you think? Should the US build more highways? And if so, why? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And
yeah, it's right. It's when I drive in the USA, I think, oh, I can drive from wherever to wherever, and it's going to be a comfortable drive.
Yeah.
Roadways are wider. It's clearer on the highways. When you get to the big cities, obviously the congestion starts busy. Heavy. Over here, I look at driving to say Birmingham, which is only 100 and something miles, and I just think, God, it's going to be drama. It's going to be roadworks, traffic, heavy duty traffic the whole way.
Rain.
Yeah, it's just spray, mist, people who don't know how to drive. And what we found as well with our driving over here, our highways and stuff, we've got a lot of new Uber drivers that have come in. So they're not very clued up on how to drive on the road, but Uber are giving away something. I think in Manchester last year, didn't they give away something like 65,000 new permits for Uber drivers? Something crazy, it was a crazy amount. And that's why the roads are congested. No new roads, but 65,000 new drivers.
Yeah.
Or Uber drivers like on the road.
I think we need to go back to horse and buggy.
Yeah, I think so. I think the rideshare, park and ride is always a good thing. But I know the rail network in the USA is not as good as the rail networks we have in the UK. But the rail network...
We have very good public transport.
We do have good public transport. The rail networks are very good, but very expensive at the same time.
Yeah.
So you get the rail network now to drive to go from Manchester to London. It's like £300.
Yeah.
So like $400, which is in the USA flying. You can fly from probably New York to Houston for next to nothing sort of thing.
Yeah, but look, like the fact over there, London to Manchester is like the same distance as like.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's in there.
San Francisco to Los Angeles probably.
But I know probably
too far.
Yeah, if I can drive in the USA, I can drive interstate and go for miles, right? And it's a comfortable drive, is what I'm saying. You drive over here on the highway, and you're gonna have a truck about 6 inches to the left of you. You can have a truck in front of him. You can have a car driving in front of you that's going too slow that the trucks are taking over on the inside. You try and get in the outside lane. People are coming down the outside at 100 mile an hour, sort of thing. And then the guy in front of him is doing 60.
Maybe it's
so
just
brake,
you.
stop,
Maybe
brake,
it's
stop.
just you. Maybe it's
Just a shit style of driving over here compared
We're
to
always all right, aren't we? Maybe it's just you.
Yeah. Patient. But yeah, I think the network of motorways or highways they've got in the USA is probably sufficient for what they need.
Yeah.
But enjoyed that though. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Cheers.